thoughts on the Doctor Doom casting? Oh man, I love it. I love it. There's some people who are complaining. I'm like, bro, first of all, I understand. So the fact that Robert Downey Jr. is playing Doctor Doom is dope as shit to me because one, I knew that they had to kill off Tony Stark eventually, partially because of Robert Downey Jr.'s age. But having him play Doctor Doom as an element where you don't really have to, age isn't as big of a factor, so we get Robert Downey Jr. more without, like, for at least another 10 years, probably. So there's that. Secondly, we have to understand this is Marvel. So if they chose, so the Russo brothers came back, in case y'all didn't know, the Russo brothers who did Captain America Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, and Infinity Wars and Endgame, those Russo brothers, they came back when they announced that Robert Downey Jr. was playing Doctor Doom. So they haven't taken an L yet. So there's that. If the Russo brothers agreed, it means that MCU is going in a direction that they approve of, and that's why they rejoined. I would assume that it would be so what I think is, here's what I think is going to happen. The reason that the reason that they're bringing in Robert Downey Jr. specifically, and what I'm assuming is he's going to play Tony Stark. And the reason why is because in the comics, there is a variant of Tony Stark or Iron Man that becomes Doctor Doom. The reason why they're choosing a variant of Tony Stark to play Doctor Doom instead of just having a random actor, Victor Von Doom play Doctor Doom, is because they're trying to make up for the Kang disaster. They've had all of this work done already in the multiverse to set up the process of variants, to set up, when you look at the Loki series, one of the best fucking well-written series I've ever seen for any show ever. Loki is an amazing series. If you haven't watched it. When you look at that, when you look at the setup from the Marvels, obviously Ant-Man, everything that they were doing was setting up for this multiversal saga, and it was supposed to end with Kang. Now they removed Kang. I actually don't think they were really justified in doing so, but it is what it is. That's where we're at right now. So, as much as I love the MCU, people complain about the movies that came after Infinity Wars and Endgame. I think it's silly. I feel like it's like one of those things. You die a hero, you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. Like, ironically, I guess, no pun intended with the whole Tony Stark situation, but it's like Marvel had done so well for so long that people were waiting for it to fail, especially DC fans. I don't know. DC fans are weird because I don't even know why I like DC so much. I like the cartoons, and I don't love the cartoons, but I really like them. But I've never understood DC fans' obsession with DC. Like, that Justice League movie was okay. It was mid at best. It had decent parts. The fighting scenes were good, and that's about as far as it goes. I don't know why they made Ben Affleck's boring ass Batman. I don't know why they did that. But the MCU was doing like billion, like they did it $1 billion or almost $1 billion on almost all the new movies that they released. Right? And people were like, oh man, they only did 600 million this time. Ha ha ha. It means that people don't like the MCU. Forgetting, like, guys, we had to live through an era where people remember how everybody felt about Thor up until the third Thor movie. Some people were wishy-washy about Dark World, but no one liked Thor. They liked the character Thor. They liked Thor in Avengers, but Thor movies, people were like, until Thor Ragnarok. People did not like Captain America, the movie. That was one of those movies. And so what's funny about it too, is that everybody likes it now, but it's because we have the benefit of the perception of Captain America, who he is now versus what he was in the evolution of his character. So but at the time, those people didn't like Captain America that much. They were like, mid. They like Iron Man movies. Oh, and nobody liked the Hulk. Well, people like the Hulk. I like the Hulk, but a lot of people didn't like the actor, and that was probably justified. The actor was not that good. But they didn't like the Hulk that much. They liked it, but it was like, another Hulk movie, right? Which is why they haven't done another one, probably. Actually, I know there was a legal reason for that too. But anyway, so the Hulk movie was a Hulk movie. Iron Man came in, swooped in, saved the day. Thor, people were like, cool, we have Thor, so at least we know we're getting some continuity. We got Iron Man 2, which was a hit again. We get Captain America before Avengers. And everybody's like, okay, at least we know we're getting Avengers. That's basically every movie outside of Iron Man. Most of the Marvel movies were, at least we know we're getting Avengers. That's kind of how it was set up. Then Avengers hit, and people forget, people didn't start, the average person, like if you weren't like a super duper superhero fan, they didn't start really rocking with Marvel, like to the point where we knew like everything was basically going to be a hit after, until Guardians of the Galaxy. That's when the average moviegoer was like, oh no, we gotta start paying attention to Marvel. And then Winter Soldier. And then the series started coming out with Luke Cage and shit. Like, people forget it was a process to get to that level of success. So them trying to compare, like, oh, this is an Infinity Wars. Well, bitch, duh. Like, it's Infinity Wars. I don't know if y'all know how I feel about Guardians 2, so I'm not gonna rehash that. I'm biggest Guardians 2 fan ever. In my opinion, that's the best movie ever made. It is not even close. That's when you want to talk about music selection, actor selection, plot, themes, everything. But for the average moviegoer, it is almost impossible to outdo Infinity War. It is impossible because you don't have the benefit of anticipation. There's anticipation, there's buildup, there was so much that went into play outside of the actual making of the movie that you can't replicate it again, because we've never seen I always say the closest thing that we've ever seen to an Infinity War situation, Infinity War Endgame, is literally Harry Potter. That's it. That's the closest. Some people might argue Star Wars, but I wouldn't even give it that, because because a lot of the Star Wars shit, the side characters and all that stuff, Clone War movie, or cartoon, all that stuff started after episode 3. It wasn't part of the buildup of the plot and the storyline. Like, you didn't have to watch things to understand things. Like, you didn't have to watch, like, for example, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That show is the shit. And if you're like a big Marvel fan, people who don't like Marvel all that much, the MCU, they love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But that's also, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually a main part of the plot. And some of Age of Ultron is actually somewhat confusing if you have not watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I like the casting of Robert Downey Jr. because he re-brings the spark that ignited the MCU. We took I didn't take for granted, but a lot of people take for granted what Robert Downey Jr. did, not just for the MCU, but for acting in general. Robert Downey Jr. changed the game up. Before, when you played a role, it was you were trying to act like the character, at least the perception of the character. Robert Downey Jr. flipped it on its head, and he made it so that, no, I am Tony Stark, and this is how the perception will be of Tony Stark from now on. And it's basically you play who you are and make people believe that role is you, right? I always make the joke, like, for example, with Robert Downey Jr., if you look at how he acts as Tony Stark, right? And then watch the Sherlock Holmes movies that he stars in, that is literally just Sherlock Holmes starring Tony Stark as Robert Downey Jr. It's like if Tony Stark was Sherlock Holmes, basically. I like that they make Tony Stark a little bit on the spectrum. He's actually, even though they kind of make him a people person. And like, so if you ever seen him cast in the old cartoons, or the way that he's kind of sold in the 90s, and in some of the comics, he's as smart as this Tony Stark, but he's super sociable. He's just as witty. He's a people person. Everybody loves him. He has no social anxiety. That's not realistic. If you're really as smart as Tony Stark in the comics, or excuse me, as Robert Downey Jr. plays him, you're probably going to be a tad bit narcissistic and have a bunch of social anxiety and be on the spectrum, most likely, which he is. So he flipped the script, and all of a sudden, all these actors come in, they start casting for roles based on you being yourself for the most part. And when they try to change that formula, that's when they actually don't have success. So like I like the Ms. Marvel series. If you didn't watch the television series, it's actually really dope. And part of the reason why it's so dope is because the girl who plays Kamala is actually a Marvel super fan. Like that's how she is. She like literally was like in a social media debate calling out Kevin Feige, saying that there's no way that this Marvel universe, or at least the Earth from this Marvel universe, could be, what is it, 616? Yeah, like for various reasons. I'm not going to get into that. But basically, she was like going at people's knowledge, saying like, if you understand Earth 616, there's no way that this Earth from this version of the MC from Marvel, excuse me, can be 616, which is true. So she is a Marvel super fan, and that's actually what made the part so good. If a lot of these, even Tom Holland, I mean, this is how he acts, how he who he is as Spider-Man. That is how he is in real life. If you've ever seen interviews with him, he's like this boyish, carefree guy who actually is like, he definitely likes validation and is constantly seeking attention. Not in a bad way. It's just like that's because he didn't grow up in Hollywood. So like everything is new to him. He's like a wide, bright-eyed kid, and that's how he is in real life. And that's how he is as Spider-Man. So I like Robert Downey Jr. because it reignites that spark that made everybody fall in love with MCU to begin with and give it the opportunity to become the juggernaut that it's been.